Hi guys, MrRoflWaffles here. This is going to be a chopped up version of the Invitation, which is the first mission from the Edge of Fate, and I'll be jumping in with some commentary here and there, but also just letting the gameplay speak for itself in certain areas. And to start, we're going to listen to the introductory spiel for the mission from Ikora, played by a new voice actor.
Guardian, welcome to Kepler, as the Vanguard Archive calls it. The gravimetric distortions we tracked from the EDZ are tangled in an excess of dark matter. In our records, this planetoid was confirmed to be unoccupied and inert. But these readings indicate a singularity. Something's keeping this planetoid stable and our matter intact, but... Guardian, there's a black hole here on Kepler. This is dangerous. If at any point this singularity destabilizes, it could swallow us and take the entire Sol system with it. We need to find whoever sent our invitation. They need our help.
So I'm going to jump forward a moment here to the first bit of combat, and then I'll properly introduce things.
I've never seen Elixni move like this. Mind their vertical, Guardian.
So, this was basically the start of the mission. I have skipped the intro cutscene in the video here because I'm not allowed to show you that and I'm not allowed to discuss what happens in it, but as you heard in the loading screen for the mission, we've received an invitation and we're now hunting it down. Now, the first thing that you'll notice in the gameplay here is that I'm using a new exotic. This is called the Graviton Spike, and it's an exotic hand cannon, which at first I didn't really understand how to use, but I figured it out, so give me a moment here. Basically, you've got to get crits, or you've got to just get final blows with the weapon, and that will charge the alt fire of the weapon. So right now I'm using the arc version of it, and you could see just for a moment there in the bottom left it said stasis overcharged. Then if I hold my reload button, it will flip me over to the stasis version of the gun, and you'll then be able to get a sort of special stasis effect from that as well. Now, that's me switching over to stasis, that's me switching back to arc. You can see kind of how the toggle looks. Now let's listen in to Lodi for a second.
Mayday! Lodi transmitting. Strange matter detected. Singularity opening near local HI and NHI population.
I can't tell when this Mayday was sent. Whoever made it understands the danger this place is in. But this signal's too weak to have reached us on Earth. This isn't our invitation.
Ikora, it looks like we've got a blockade up ahead.
Now, something you're probably noticing in this gameplay is that there's occasionally a frame hitch here or there. That did get smoothed out. That was just because this was genuinely the very first part of the play session, and so I was still doing things like tweaking my keybinds, tweaking some of the graphic settings, etc. But what you just saw there was a great example of what the overcharged arc effect is, and that's the overcharged stasis effect. So you can toggle between the two. And honestly, I really like this exotic. I thought it was really fun to play with, and it does mean that I'm kind of aiming for headshots in scenarios where normally I would just be sort of beaming people in the back. But there's nothing wrong with that, I guess. So you can see I'm being a little bit more kind of picky here. I've got my arc overcharge, missing my shots. I'm sorry, dude. I was getting warmed up. My sensitivity was weird. I got excuses by the dozen. Meanwhile, while I'm sort of fighting through this little crowd of these new little fallen wretches with their little spears, we just heard Lodi for the first time, right? And Lodi has a distress signal for us, which is not something that could have reached Earth, so that's not the reason we've been called here, and we also don't know when that signal originated, so we don't know if that's a signal that was recorded a long time ago, or if it's actually something that we're transmitting and receiving live, but we do know that whoever is sending it seemingly needs our help. So I'm going to let the combat kind of play out here, and then we'll check in again in a moment.
A singularity, a distress call, and now another ancient train. But how do they all connect? More importantly, how can we help? The status of the singularity will worsen with time. We can't do anything about that right this moment. But discovering a locking mechanism this complex and a radio transmission that sounds human means we could be on the precipice of encountering another pocket of civilization. By my triage, the most effective thing we can do right now is find the source of the distress signal. The trail we're following leads past the train, then scatters. We'll need to get through to find who called for help. The mechanism here appears to be missing some pieces. I've tracked materials nearby that closely match the frequency of the device. Find them, Guardian.
So just a bit of context there is that we have previously in the game at this point, through cutscenes, etc., seen a train. That's why they're saying we're seeing a train again, right?
Lodi transmitting. Status moonsick. Adrift. Odysseus protocol active.
Odysseus protocol. We've heard that before. Wait, there's a backlog. Keep moving, Guardian. I'm going to see if these transmissions can give us any more information.
So, jumping forward a moment here, because I did a little bit of exploration, I found that little metal box, and that box is something which will end up being very relevant in just a moment. I also found this thing on the wall, which has a lot of words on it. If you guys want to translate that, that would be awesome. I don't really know what that is saying, to be honest, but looks interesting. Certainly caught my attention. Yep. Still looking. Yep, there we go. So this is another thing that I would find the sort of purpose for later, the undiscovered technology. So I was sort of snooping around, but wasn't able to interact with it at that time. You might have also noticed it said mystery discovered in the corner. Those mysteries will become very clear as I go through the video here. There's also parrots, or something like parrots, all over the place on Kepler. So that's nice. And there's this thing that doesn't respond to your molecular structure, which again is something that you'll end up finding a use for shortly. It's one of the locational abilities that you can use on Kepler.
Your vitals stabilized. Must be a fluke.
So it asked, do we have your attention? And the answer was hell yes. And it was cool because I had Allison behind me as I was experiencing that for the first time. And she was enjoying my reaction to it quite a lot, of being like, what the hell am I looking at right now? So I thought that was very cool. This is kind of interesting little animation moment as well. Getting up in that soup and then into a ball for the first time. So this is one of the locational abilities.
Well, this sure is new. All your vitals appear to be in order, but your molecules are moving unbelievably fast.
Guardian, this energy pattern is distinct from your expected paracausal signature. It matches the dark matter readings from when we landed. It appears you've managed to somehow fuse with dark matter.
So this is something that you're going to be using a lot on Kepler, like a lot. It's all over the place. It's in the main missions. It's in a lot of the exploration that you can do. And you're basically always looking for either one of these little pads, which I called out before, that said that my energy signature was wrong or something. You're looking for either one of those to activate Matter Spark initially, or you're looking for more or less like a vent of some kind, or one of those metal things. So that I also pointed out a little earlier on. And you can shock it with your left click, and it will then charge up and do things like open doors for you and things along those lines. You've also got a dash, which I just sort of showcased there for a moment. And there's some other abilities as well that you'll unlock in time. There's also that thing on the wall, which was something else entirely. So not going to worry about that too much right now. I'm still just sort of doing a little bit of exploration. I was like, ooh, maybe I can put myself inside that thing. But that was something else. So, yep. Not what you meant to do there, Milo. But that's part of the fun, I think, of being on Kepler, is you're constantly looking for interactions with these different location abilities, and you don't know how they all work together initially, but gradually, as you build up your toolkit, you're going to get more and more of them to play with and experiment with and see sort of where you can go with them. I also thought that little vent was interesting because it's got a little sort of turny handle on it, which is the same style as another door you're going to see in just a moment, which does open. So I thought there might be a secret passage, but I couldn't find one. I'm also really curious what you think of the new Ikora voice actor, because I'm pretty confident that that's Deborah Wilson. Bungie didn't confirm, but I could recognize her voice anywhere. I love her. I actually got to hang out with Deborah Wilson for a day for a Suicide Squad video over a year ago now. and she was in character the whole time, and she was just like ripping into me. Like she was insulting my snowboarding abilities and like all sorts of wild stuff. It was so much fun. She's a pleasure to be around in person. And I personally think that the more work that she gets in the industry, the better the industry will be for it. But also I recognize the fact that you guys probably are quite attached to the Ikora voice actor. I don't really know. I think Ikora's changed around a couple of times, right? So curious what your sort of overall community feeling is towards a new voice actor being present for Ikora in The Edge of Fate. But yeah, if it was going to be anyone, my personal choice would always be Deborah Wilson. I will glaze that woman for the rest of my days. I think that she's just wonderful. So here's me fighting some kind of stinky Kepler stuff. And at this point, I was sort of trying to figure out, like, is there a way that I can big brain this and show off some kind of cool gameplay while I'm fighting these shanks? Maybe there's something that I can do with the Matter Spark here to make this a little bit more interesting. But I found that the shock ability on the Matter Spark didn't really do a huge amount. Like you can see me underneath the servitor here, just trying to do something to it, and it doesn't really work. And basically the way it works is when you die, also amazing, great Nova Bomb. When you die while in the Matter Spark, it just pops you back out into human form. Yeah, something you'll see through a lot of this gameplay is that my keybinds were all wrong. Like I didn't have my melee properly set up, my click properly set up, my super was on the wrong button, stuff like that. And I was just sort of like so enamored by what was happening in front of me and being excited to play that I didn't sort of sit down and actually tweak all of them straight away, which means that some of this gameplay looks a bit funny when I'm like clicking the wall instead of an enemy. But hey, look, that click wasn't so bad, so maybe it's not all terrible. I'm also, I want to sort of circle back real quick because I'm trying to not forget little threads that I start sort of saying as I go through this. The Matter Spark is something that you get extra abilities for as you level it up. So right now I'm at Matter Spark 1, so I can zap enemies and I can dash, and that's basically it. And it lasts 30 seconds, and I need to be at a Matter Spark pad in order to initiate it. Whereas later on in the game, you're going to get abilities to, for example, enter Matter Spark at any time, and it actually will replace your Sparrow, so you can pull up tab, enter the Matter Spark ball, and then you can also be inside the ball indefinitely so long as you don't die, and that obviously would kick you back out into human form. So you can just roam around, roll around, and do quite a lot of exploration while in ball mode. And I don't know if replacing the Sparrow in that way is something that some people are going to be annoyed about. I'm not sure if there is still a way to get your Sparrow out while you've got that ability. I'm not 100%. I didn't really test it too much. I was just busy being happy in ball form. But yeah, something that's worth noting that is a possibility. And then right there, just next to me, you could actually see I was sort of looking for a pipe to go through, and I've spotted the end pipe that I need to get to, but you don't get to it via those. So I'm going to sort of roll around here, and I'm going to search for the other pipe that I need to enter. That's what I'm doing here, because I need to get to those pylons, and the pylons are marked, but the entrance isn't marked. So I'm looking for how exactly I get into that room. Then I'm thinking, okay, what about the other room? Yep, not quite, Milo. You just went past it. Yep, it's... Nope. Yep. Nope. Yeah. So first time around, right? First time around, you don't know necessarily what specifically you're looking for. Second time around, yeah, you know that you're going to be searching for those pipes, right? So... that was a learning process, obviously, at the very beginning of playing here. That's just proof, if anything, that this genuinely is my first go at the Edge of Fate, at the expansion at all. This is the new pulse rifle. So its name is the third iteration. The way this thing works, when you're using it, obviously when you're not in Matter Spark form, is that you need to hold down your ADS, and you'll see your reticle kind of tighten in the center of your screen. And once it reaches the center, you then can kill an enemy with a crit, and it will put you in invis, and you can then also mark enemies as well, which you'll see me doing, I think, a bit later. I didn't realize that you could do the marking stuff at this point in the game, I don't think. But certainly the invis stuff you'll see me doing a little bit of as well. And I've got plenty of other videos covering that too. So getting my sort of zapping done here. Exile pylon's been charged. And you can also exit Matter Spark at any time, by the way. You just hit your, I guess for me it was my interact key. So I think that was E while I was playing. Normally I play with F. But that is what is going to let you pop out of Matter Spark at any time should you so desire. Apart from certain areas where they actually tell you you cannot leave it. And those areas are also areas where you're usually going to be in first person instead of third person. So you won't be able to see the ball any longer. There's me going invis from a crit kill once I'd ADS'd long enough. You see, I was waiting to do it there again. I actually temporarily marked that enemy. There you go. I've marked that enemy as well. So you can see me doing it a little bit here in the gameplay, but wasn't doing it super consciously. Also, you'll notice with the shanks, for example, I'm not critting on those shanks to kill them, so it's not invising me. So I believe it needs to be an invis... Sorry, it needs to be a crit kill, and that will then put you in invis only if you've charged up your ADS long enough. So now it's just time to try and take the servitor out and stop faffing about. Something you'll notice is there's quite a lot of bosses or mini bosses or whatever you'd call these, like orange bars, I guess, in the invitation as a mission. They just kind of keep on going. And that was kind of surprising to me. I thought that there would be fewer of them. But as you'll sort of see through the gameplay here, they end up coming back quite a bit. Come on, Milo. Nope, don't get distracted now. There you go. There you go. Come on. All right, bingo, chest.
Why send a train to invite us to a black hole? It seems whoever sent our invitation values consistency and catastrophic interference.
About that. I got info, but you're not gonna like it.
Try me.
The gravimetric distortions, the dark matter, the weird train. An invitation? There's only one group of jokers I know who get up to those kinds of theatrics. The Nine.
Well, that certainly is a theory. Although I would expect to have already heard from the emissary if that was the case.
So, good that they're kind of putting together the fact that the Nine might be involved, seeing as, yeah, I mean, the Nine are going to be pretty crucial to the entire rest of the Fate saga, right? So that's that important realization. Also, speaking of important realizations, me just banging my head against that wall was clearly not the way I was going to get in there. I needed to obviously charge the pylon and then get in. I'm going to do a little zoom in here on the dialogue because I think it's quite interesting. So let's sort of zoom into that now.
I'm going to rerun the telemetry to see if I can find another radio transmission and get us some answers.
Achieved precarious stabilization, but still request evacuation due to hostile NHI. If we can't close the singularity, we're pulling everyone in with us. Anyone? You out there?
Odd. The timestamp on this transmission doesn't make sense. It comes after the Mayday, but the timestamp says it was recorded many months before. Either someone is intentionally trying to scramble these transmissions, or the singularity is causing more problems than we thought.
So that's fun. I'm always a fan in my sci-fi space magic universes of singularities causing time to be out of order. Yeah, there you go. There's a click to nowhere. But like messages to appear in the wrong order, and us as the viewer and the player having to kind of figure out what the right order of operations is and when certain things happened. Like, I always love that stuff. And it's also interesting that Lodi has himself tried to close the singularity and then maybe pulled other people in as well. Something that we're going to have to pay some close attention to in the story, no doubt. But seeing as I have basically not internalized any of the story stuff beyond this mission, you and I are on basically the same page right now as to what might be going on. I've got no other secrets I can share. I turned off my dialogue audio. I turned off my subtitles for all my subsequent missions. And so what I'm seeing on the screen here is the same thing that you're seeing, and that's really all I know. Here's me whacking a little super out for the servitor. And, you know, I see a side path. I try and explore the side path. And I noticed a ball exit point here, and I was like, you know what if I could kind of wriggle my way in there? And this really reminded me of, you know that meme of the, like, cave divers or whatever they're called that get stuck in those crazy positions? Like, I went in that pipe and I was like, yeah, I'm doing that right now. Like, that's crazy. That's a crazy thing to do to myself. So I just returned to a little bit of combat here instead.
There is indication of human occupation. No sign of mass casualty, which is a relief. Clear out the rest of these Elixir. With any luck, we'll learn more about what happened here.
So like I said, another boss. And this one, I, again, was sort of just testing out my weapons on, so I'm not really going for like a speed run, kill it as fast as humanly possible here. I'm just sort of like trying to play around with the space and understand what's there and what I can do. And then I spotted this guy just hanging out inside this little house. He's just chilling in there. And you'll see that there's also a Matterspark sort of starter point there as well. So I was like, maybe I can get in there, do something fun, or maybe there's some kind of Easter egg involved with that dude who's kind of chilling in there. And you can destroy the little fan protection shields of those captains as well, as you just saw. A little bit of Russian, a little bit of, I think, Chinese. So I guess there's multiple sort of factions from back home, so to speak, multiple countries that seemingly teamed up to build this Kepler station or something. Maybe the Aeonians, who will meet shortly, maybe they're made up of those different origins of people, perhaps. So at this point, I got sick of the sword, and I switched to something that I knew would do a bit more damage.
I thought I'd recognize those symbols. This is the House of Exile.
House of Exile. So they, as far as I know, were maybe first mentioned in Shadowkeep, or at least they are prominently mentioned in Shadowkeep. They're a fallen house where I think they don't have a Kell, so they're kind of unique in that way, and they were mentioned back then, and then I think that they were kind of just another House of the Fallen that hasn't had a huge amount of focus since then, so it's interesting that the House of Exile are now on Kepler, and Kepler itself seems to be a sort of location of exile in many ways. Of course, I got killed as soon as I killed the guy. And then it spawned me in a sort of funky spot, which I've flagged to the devs. Again, this is early gameplay. It's stuff that is absolutely subject to change, so don't expect every single spawn point to stay the same and stuff like that. We're on to the next step now, which is to charge these pylons. So I'm looking around for a starting point for my Matterspark, because remember, at this stage, I need a Matterspark spawner in order to get into that form. There you go, found it. Now, one of the things that's a little fiddly with Matterspark is sometimes the jump's just like not quite high enough. I think you get more jump as you go, or you get like some extra movement capabilities, but certainly initially it was a little fiddly getting into position sometimes. I'm not sure what this heavy shank was doing. It just sort of walked away, so I blew it up. Then went back in my Matterspark and started working on my next pylon. That's 2. This is something that happened to me quite a bit in the gameplay overall for the Edge of Fate. So I know I need a third pylon right now, but I'm just sort of like doing laps looking for it, and there you go, I found it, and then obviously I jumped down by accident. But I did find that there was quite a lot of looking around for things. Like sometimes if you just sort of didn't happen to catch the location of something, you just have to do a couple of laps of a room until you see it, which I wasn't a huge fan of, but at least in this instance, I mean, it was, what, an extra 10 seconds, 20 seconds of looking, so it's not really that big a deal. Zapped my pylon there. Zapping the shank, but, I mean, that really is doing very little, as you can see. I think the devs said that they were evaluating the damage that it does as well, so that's probably going to be something that is also changed in the future. I was hoping that that might open up that pipe, but it did not. That's me trying to boost up to the top there. And still trying to boost up. I'm having some trouble, as you can see. So I'm like, okay, I'll just do it in human form, and then obviously I get frozen. There you go. There you go. So there is like a super jump, but I just was having trouble actually properly activating it. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to take out this massive shank here, because that's probably what I need to do next.
The last time we encountered these Elixni was on Luna. They're called the Exiles because each of them were exiled from their original house. It's odd, though. I didn't think they had a leader. It's kind of what they're known for.
Got a chest in here as well. Yoink.
That's the last of them, and we've got what we need. Let's head back to the train and see if we can't get past that blockade.
No more transmissions on the backlog, and the timestamps are all off. Keep heading for the train. Maybe we can triangulate a location.
So at this point, I was like, how the hell am I going to get out of here? But thankfully, there's this little vent that you can pop out of, and that's the one that I was trying to get into before. So that's another thing that I did experience a fair bit in Kepler, is those sorts of pipes, not knowing if they were an entrance pipe or an exit pipe. In that case, as you can see, it was an exit. But that's just sort of something that you come up against as you play, and you just sort of have to deal with as you go, really. Then I'm thinking, okay, maybe now that I've done that, I can get in here as a ball with my 30 seconds of Matter Spark left, but no luck. So, skipping forwards here to me progressing the proper path once again.
Suppose you're right, Drifter, and we are dealing with the Nine. You have the most experience with them. What did you observe in your interactions?
Rumor has it the Nine are extra-dimensional. Caught in the gravity of Sol's heaviest hitters. You know, planets, moons, stuff like that. There are aliens, and there are aliens. And these guys are aliens. They don't live in this dimension, which means they can mess with you.
The Nine can scheme all they like, but until they affect the real world, let's not give them more power than they actually possess.
So once again, pretty cool. And moving on from that, you're sort of heading home, and then you get this fight started with this vessel of the Archon. And yeah, I'm using my LMG a lot here because I just wanted to get this sucker taken out. You know, I wanted to take him down, and my sword was not going to cut it. Pun intended. So I'm going to do that here.
Interesting. That Elixni wasn't an Archon. I wonder what that was all about.
In the wake of destruction, one exile falls, and three more rise.
Hold on. That same voice, this Archon's voice, is coming from another Elixni. I'm not sure what's going on.
Exiles, I prophesied the deathless arrival. Creatures cradled and kissed by the infinite curse of the great machine.
Deathless? That sounds like you, Guardian, but, derogatorily.
So I love that. I love the fact that we are the Deathless, and I love the fact that we're cursed by the Great Machine, which has got to be the Traveler, right? Like, I love that. I love hearing alien sort of species giving me their wording for what I am in this universe and like all the stuff that I interact with. I think that's so cool. But yeah, interesting that we've got another vessel of the Archon directly after the first vessel of the Archon, and I'm just attempting to hit my New Land Beyond shots here and failing pretty miserably. There you go.
Design bids us destroy them. Bring death to the deathless. Fulfill the destiny of the House of Exile. Strengthen the singularity and ascend.
That voice is coming from another elixir.
That's me wondering, what's this thing gonna do? Yeah, so interesting that they said strengthen the singularity and ascend. I really like that push-pull where these guys seemingly want to get in the singularity, whereas Lodi wants to close the singularity and not go through it. That's gonna no doubt create some fun tension throughout the campaign. Also kind of reminded me of the Covenant. Like the way that the Exile are talking here is very Covenant to me in their sort of religious doctrine and their seeking of this great journey, right? Sort of similar vibes. It's just, I don't know, there's something about the New Land that I just find really fiddly.
I still don't understand how that voice jumped from one exile to another. The witness could possess, but that required a civilization's worth of darkness. Could something have drawn them here? Maybe the high concentration of dark matter is boosting this Archon connection to darkness.
Darkness is about connection of memory, but it doesn't work like that. And dark matter, in spite of the name, has nothing to do with darkness.
So this is something else entirely.
I thought that was quite interesting. Darkness is about connection of memory.
Huh. One of the Archon's lackeys dropped something.
Ophiuchus' energy readings are spiking. This is a container of dark matter, the same connected to the singularity. Don't let that go.
Hold it. Who do you work for, and what's your business here?
Telemetry originates at this location, but the signal is weak.
What are you doing here?
We're Guardians, from Earth's vanguard. Circumstances suggest we were invited, but we don't know who sent the invitation.
Earth?
Have you been here a while?
I have journal entries tallying 4 weeks, but my 5 o'clock shadow says a day. Something's wrong with time. It's my job to investigate. You picked up something that's special to the people here. Use it. I'll see you on the other side. We can talk there. You can, tell me all about Earth.
That's the man who sent the distress signal. But he didn't seem in distress.
Something's wrong with time.
I'm curious as to how our contact intends to fix it. But his observations seem to be correct.
And we just got here. There's probably a whole mess of time nonsense just around the corner.
Agreed. This train's temporal presence is concerning.
That's the least of our worries. The real head-scratcher is our new friend seeing the people here.
Ikora did say she suspected sentient life.
Yeah. So this is trippy. It's kind of a loading screen between areas where you can just hop in the train. On the green line. And that pretty much marks the end of the mission, more or less. So I really hope you've enjoyed this sort of unusual commentary. If you have, and you want to see more missions, I think I can show some more missions. So just let me know ASAP, and I'll do the exact same thing for some of the other content that I played. But otherwise, if you want to check out some dev interviews or some overall kind of analysis of what I liked and didn't like, or just all sorts of other stuff on the exotics or whatever, I've got tons of it on my channel. So click my channel name, I guess, and check some of those other videos out now. They'll also be linked on screen. So thanks for watching, folks, and I'll see you very soon in more Edge of Fate gameplay.